This evening, we bring you the story of how some well-sought-after items in a St. Andrew inner-city community are simply wasting away. But now the community is pushing hard to get the items working soon because it would benefit them greatly, especially in this pandemic. That community is Jakes Road in St. Andrew, and here's Kirk Wright with the details.
Jakes Road, a small community located off Mountain View Avenue in St. Andrew, is sometimes embroiled in conflict with neighboring communities. But the community holds a treasure which is the envy of others. A 40-foot container with 20 computers, but for now they are useless to the community.
It's really like a sore point for us, because we were really appreciative of the MP and the authorities that gave it to us. At the same time, we are saddened by the fact that for 3 years, over 3 years, it's been sitting here.
The computer center operated for 3 years before internal issues developed, according to the Member of Parliament, Julian Robinson, who did not elaborate. But he did say one of the problems had to do with the solar system that was put in to run the center and the high electricity consumption.
One of the biggest challenges with a computer lab, it has to be kept air conditioned, and as such you run up a large bill. And there were some internal challenges with the community-based organization that led to the non-utilization of the solar.
So the center has been without power for 3 years and the computers left to the elements. Look at what happens when it rains. Almost everything gets soaked, including the electronics for the solar system. In the meantime, a Good Samaritan from the community opens her house daily to help children from the community with online classes. Many of the children would otherwise go to the computer center. She can accommodate only a handful, so Anthony Lamont sent his children to the nearby Vineyard Town community for online classes. For him, it's not ideal, but his choices are few.
Even sending a child to somebody, children easily learn from children, and most of the people them know the culture. You know, when your children really adapt the culture, but through education, you really have to send them. You understand? You really have to send them, and school is not like school. When you're at school now, you know the culture they are school to, but teachers are there to correct, you understand, and let them know what is right and what is wrong.
Everton Douglas, or Fuba, the man who was held for 3 years under the state of emergency and was later released without charge, is pushing to get the center reopened.
Everybody is just sad that it's of no use to us, owing that it's COVID now, and a lot of the students inside the community don't even have access to phone, Wi-Fi, or a tablet. So they express their, the whole desire to, and they ask questions of us when and why it's not up and running and stuff like that.
The Member of Parliament says a team from the Universal Service Fund assessed the situation and will be visiting the community soon for another assessment. Mr. Robinson has recommended that the computers be moved to the community center where it is more ideal. Kirk Wright, TVJ News.
Don't fear the swab. That's the assurance from one local doctor to people taking the COVID-19 test. Shamela Pullen tells us more in this evening's health report.
The COVID-19 test is a procedure feared by many Jamaicans. The most common method used to test individuals for the virus is the nasal swab.
Or them show it over the TV and you have to hold back your head and push this thing down the back of your throat. That's supposed to hurt. So, I don't think I can manage it.
They push the thing back in your throat and it burns a little bit after you finish the test. I don't think I would want to do it again.
Usually they will feel the resistance when the swab touches the back of the nose. The swab is then rotated and swept from side to side and held in place for a couple of seconds just to collect any mucus that is there. And then the swab is removed. And then that is placed in the viral transport medium. Now, sometimes the swab is taken from both nostrils before we send it off. But in the event that one nostril has a kind of fixed obstruction, then the swab may be taken from one nostril.
The swab is then sent to a lab for testing. Consultant ear, nose and throat surgeon Dr. Merton Smith says for the most part, the procedure gives mild discomfort. But sometimes people are not cooperative and so they would get a nosebleed.
And this is especially so in persons who are uncooperative and who may decide to shift their head during the swabbing process, or, for example, a patient who may be taking medications that increase the risk of bleeding, such as blood thinners. Also, patients who have a known bleeding disorder may be at increased risk of bleeding during the procedure.
Over-the-counter medications can be given to reduce bleeding from the nose. Dr. Smith has this advice for people taking the test.
Do not fear the test, because anxiety and being too tense about the test actually can make the testing experience worse. Understand that if you're being tested for a reason. Either you're getting tested so that you can travel as part of your screen, or you have symptoms, or you're going in for elective procedures or admission to hospital. And so you have to look at the greater good. Understand that the test itself takes just a few seconds, and while it is associated with some discomfort, it is not painful and is by and large not dangerous.
With your health report, I'm Shamela Pullen wishing you good health.
In a primetime news follow-up, this evening we examine the contents of a letter from extortionists which caused work on a section of the multi-billion-dollar Southern Coastal Highway project in St. Thomas to stop over the weekend. Krista Campbell visited the work site today, where work resumed yesterday, and the detectives from the Counter-Terrorism and Organized Crime Unit, CTOC, have started investigations.
One sheet of paper that caused a section of the multi-billion-dollar Southern Coastal Highway in St. Thomas to shut down on the weekend.
You could call it a job letter of sorts, because in it, the author or authors demanded protection money from the contractors. Now, TVJ News has been informed that 2 men hand-delivered the letter at gunpoint to a project manager. It reads,
Mr. Man and Mr. Man, welcome to our program. If I refuse to work with our plan, you and Mr. Man will have a contract in Trinityville, and your life will be at risk in the next 48 hours. We need $100,000 every 2 weeks, and your work can flow in peace. Now, as I get our invoice, we're going to call you on your phone in the evening, and we'll do business from there, Mr. Man. You live far away, so if you refuse to, we're going to kill Mr. Man and 2 of the workers and close the work site, Mr. Man.
The contractor immediately stopped work on the 9.5 kilometer of roadway from Georgia to Cedar Valley in St. Thomas on Friday. And despite a warning from the extortionists that the police not be contacted, the matter is now in the hands of detectives from the Counter-Terrorism and Organized Crime Unit, CTOC. CTOC investigators were in the area today, and head of the St. Thomas Police, Superintendent Alison Byfield, says police patrols have been beefed up.
We'll deprive other areas of security personnel to put personnel in that area. But in dialogue with my senior officers, we are trying to get more police personnel in the division so we can properly and adequately police the projects.
A worker we spoke with today says he's not convinced the extortionists mean business, but the letter was enough to cause fear and concerns. It ends by saying,
If you guys work with us, everything will go good. Mr. Man and Mr. Man, me now waste no oxygen and carbon dioxide upon you guys. A corporation or slaughteration. Big money or big funeral for you.
Now the police say it's the first such incident since the highway project has been underway over the past year. There are no active gangs operating in St. Thomas, and there was only 1 murder in Trinityville last year. Meanwhile, a resident says he's concerned about how such an action could affect economic developments in the area and the parish as a whole.
The best we're going to do is try to get some of the work. And when the road is fixed, we will be able to make money. We can put up a stall here or a stall there. You understand? Tourists passing through.
It is a blow to residents of the area because they are earning from the project. So it is a blow for these residents, and also a blow to the police because to provide better roadway for us to drive on to police the area.
Krista Campbell, TVJ News.
Welcome back. We're continuing the news. The weak link. How stakeholders see data security at local telecoms providers. Experts argue telecoms need to do more to protect customer information as tech-savvy fraudsters are multiple steps ahead. Now, this comes amidst growing public frustration over the latest scam, SIM swap, affecting mobile users. Giovanni Dennis has more in this primetime news follow-up.
Security systems for financial accounts online, emails, and even your mobile phone all form part of your online security chain, which may appear strong in parts, but according to this IT expert, has a weak link.
So that's the issue. It's just like, this is a pretty good gate. It's having a big fence around stuff and it seems secure, but there's this weak point, which is your cell phone and the cell company, where people can actually access and break in.
The reason? Criminals are changing their tactics faster than telecom security can respond.
The people who are in the organizations are not necessarily updating their security as fast as the individual can find out how to do things. That's where the problem is. Because I could just go, I promise you, if I was to become one of the SIM swappers, I'd be one of the best at it. And that's just me doing our research. Is that easy to do?
In 2019, 3 former employees of Verizon and AT&T, the 2 largest telecoms providers in the United States, were charged for their part in a SIM swapping ring where they allegedly took bribes in exchange for releasing customer information. There's no evidence or reports of similar cases in Jamaica, although we continue to await an update from the Jamaica Constabulary Force. Both Flow and Digicel tout their security. Flow says it takes the security of customers' data seriously and has robust policies and processes, including visual ID verification, which are followed before a SIM swap is done. Digicel says safeguarding the privacy and confidentiality of customers' information is their #1 priority, noting they've invested heavily in data security. But the head of investigations in the Fraud Prevention Unit at NCB argues stronger security mechanisms are needed.
Telecom provider will have to strengthen the authentication or the validation process around issuing and replacing SIM card. That is where it is going to be very critical.
Do you think our local telecoms companies need to do better?
Yeah, of course. But they just need to tell people what to do. They're not required. So I was thinking about it like, you know, when we changed to 876 and we had to put the phone number in and it said no more phone calls past this date, and lots of people didn't change until finally it came and he said, oh crap, I have to start changing numbers. You should just probably say, you know, by July X, you know, anyone who doesn't have a PIN on their SIM card, we're going to lock your SIM. You know, do things to just force security.
Since our first report on Friday, several other customers have reported that they have suffered from SIM swap scam. Giovanni Dennis, TVJ News.
Reactions this evening from residents of Augustown in St. Andrew to the extension of the Zone of Special Operations ZOSO in their community. Parliament yesterday approved the measure for another 2 months in Augustown and the 3 other communities.
The Zone of Special Operations ZOSO has been in effect in Augustown in eastern St. Andrew since July last year, and for the residents, their lives have been better.
People them glad to know that the ZOSO in the area and them can sleep good, and you know the kids them will, you know, them can do them exam without fear of hearing gunshot on the school. Our school not in session now still, but you know the kids them can get to have a sigh of relief, no gunshot.
It's also of the community and live term. You know, people are going to work and school and the country around, the community around all right, isn't me? Yeah, man. From the ZOSO them jobs.
Along with Augustown, the ZOSOs were extended in Denham Town, Greenwich Town, as well as Mount Salem. In Augustown in particular, the zone was declared because gangs were wreaking havoc in the community.
Feel good to know that they'll be here, but when the soldier them gone, what next?
University, the right up there, so. You don't know, so. The youth them for just know, say, yo, done the war, done the violence, done the crime, and make Augustown be a better town.
St. Andrew Eastern MP Favour Williams told Parliament on Tuesday that before the ZOSO was declared, life was miserable for the residents.
Prior to the zones of special operation, the elderly went to bed at nights, not sure if they would be able to get under their beds fast enough when the gunshots start at nights. Many elderly persons have hurt themselves ducking for safety.
But while communities like Augustown see fewer murders, opposition leader Mark Golding argues that many communities across the island are seeing an increase.
We need to find a strategy that will tackle the flare-ups of crime which exist. And sadly, even in some of the ZOSO areas, they are not immune, because we had one quite recently in one of the a series of violent acts in one of the ZOSO communities up to about a week ago. I look forward to seeing what can be done to learn from the ZOSO legislation and what can be generalized to help make law enforcement more effective.
It is true we need to look in the holistic approach to fighting crime at the capacity of our legal framework, the justice system, the Parliamentary Council, the Attorney General Department, and all the other factors that go into ensuring we can have not only efficient policing, but justice for all.
Vashon Brown, TVJ News.
Meanwhile, criticisms this evening from the Office of the Public Defender on the execution of the Zones of Special Operations. Officers appeared before Parliament's Joint Select Committee on the Zones of Special Operations. Javon Keys followed Wednesday afternoon's proceedings.
Public Defender Arlene Harrison Henry is once again chastising aspects of the execution of the Zones of Special Operations ZOSO. As a matter of fact, the overall efficacy of the zones is being brought under scrutiny.
The data provided has not revealed or shown the recovery of firearms, ammunition, nor is there any report of successful investigation and prosecution of any major crimes. I think that this is what we're after. I think it is the guns and so on, and the successful investigation and prosecution of matters.
The public defender says it's however used to collect data, which raises some concerns for her office.
In light of the Data Protection Act, the public defender is concerned about A, the storage of data, B, the use of data, who has access to it, and the protection of the privacy of persons from whom data has been gathered. Finally, it is of no small concern as to whether or not the collection, storage, and access of these data and related matters comport to the Data Protection Act and ultimately with the Constitution.
Since the first zone was established on September 1, 2017 in Mount Salem, St. James, the Public Defender's Office has raised concerns about the circumstances under which people have been detained, and the concerns persist 3 additional zones and more than 3 years later.
Of note, however, Chairman, is the fact that persons who are being taken into custody are not being taken before the justice of the peace, which is what the law says, that when you are detained, you are to be forthwith taken before the justice of the peace, because it is he or she who will determine whether or not you ought to remain in that status.
Since 2017, a total of 1,406 people have been detained across the zones set up in Mount Salem, St. James, Denham Town in Kingston, and August Town in St. Andrew. Of note, most of the detainees were released the same day they were apprehended. As for the data on the Greenwich Town zone, which was established in July 2020, Mrs. Harrison Henry has concerns.
From a cursory examination of the data, which came to us very late, and it seems incomplete, but what we have concluded preliminarily is that the zone is not particularly active.
Generally, the public defender notes that while at the outset body cameras were being worn by the joint forces in the zones, that practice has faded. She also adds that collection of data on assigned weapons is also an issue.
There is no indication or suggestion that the weapons or ammunition assigned to members of the joint force in these zones were registered with the Institute of Forensic Science and Legal Medicine as required by Section 20 of the Zones of Special Operation Act.
Mrs. Harrison Henry says this highlights a blatant disregard for the provisions of the Law Reform Act of 2017, which governs ZOSOs. She adds that the neglect of these and other provisions suggests that the security forces have not learned from the past events, such as the May 2010 police operation in West Kingston. Javon Keys, TVJ News.
To a primetime news follow-up now, entertainer Beanie Man pleaded not guilty to breaches of the Disaster Risk Management Act and the Noise Abatement Act when he appeared in the St. Elizabeth Parish Court today. He's scheduled to stand trial on April 19. The entertainer was accused of hosting an entertainment event in St. Elizabeth on November 29 in contravention of the Disaster Risk Management Act. He's being represented by attorney-at-law Roderick Gordon.